Welcome back to MLW Vault, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Balin Weiss. I appreciate you all tuning back in here for episode number 3 of MLW Vault here. In this one, we got a little interesting, probably a little controversial topic here. We're going to be redrafting every draft in MLW history. So if you don't know, the MLW draft started in 2020, and it has been a tradition all the way up to the 2023 season, and we're going to have another one this April for the 2024 season. So of the 4 draft classes in MLW, we're going to be looking at how all 8 players in every draft class has kind of progressed throughout their career in MLW, and ultimately redrafting each class to see who's like the true number 1 overall pick in every draft and who was a high pick and then ended up really sliding, and who was one of the more underrated ones at the bottom. So like I said, a little bit controversial. So if you'd like to leave your feedback, at the top link in the description of this episode, we are going to have a feedback form where I want to know what you guys think, and then it'll give you a little option for you to redraft your own class. So I'll be definitely going through those. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much it. Pretty simple episode concept. So let's jump into around the league here because we got some news on MLW. That's next. So this episode is coming out on Monday, January 15th. And if you were unaware, on January 12th, we had some breaking news around the Great Lakes Gators organization. I know we've been talking about a possible Brendan Jorgensen trade, maybe Cheatham stepping down. Pretty unlikely here, or I guess surprising, but out of breaking news, Brendan Zerlag stepped down as the manager to the Great Lakes Gators, and he is actually seeking a new team as a trade is likely to happen soon. We're going to be breaking down what we think out of that before we get into redrafting. But I was shocked when I saw this, just because I it's just a weird move, and I'll tell you why I don't think that's gonna change anything. But nonetheless, that's one of the more breaking news, at least of the offseason. Hopefully, there's a lot more to come, but trade likely to happen soon. So Zerlag, I didn't even know managers could do that, but yeah, he stepped down. So that means somebody needs to step up as manager for the Gators, and then Zerlag will be playing for a new team come 2024. So that's the biggest one. But another thing around the league, voting for the 2023 awards has been closed. That closed on January 11th, and then the award show video, a very quick turnaround, as it is expected to release Friday, January 19th. So for me, that is this Friday in a couple days. So very, very excited about that. If you have not checked out the episode where I went very in depth and figured out who I think deserves to win every single award, be sure to check that out. That's up everywhere: Apple, Spotify, YouTube is episode number 2, where I think I kind of filled out my 2023 ballot. So all right, let's jump into here the Brendan Zerlag thoughts really quickly before getting into redrafting. So this is a terrible move. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm sure it was consulted with everybody on the Gators, but really, of the 4 guys, because I'm not including Reese Harris because doesn't play a super vital part in the Gators. But of the 4 players, Jason Chadwick, Brendan Zerlag, Brendan Jorgensen, and Chris Cheatham, I would see the smallest market for Zerlag and the smallest turnaround for, if you were to trade away Zerlag, the smallest thing in return for Brendan Zerlag. So, all in all, I just don't see a big market for him. In 2023, he had a 618 OPS with 136 average and only 1 home run. And so, I mean, and also I'd just I'd go through every team, and I was thinking okay, well, who has in my mind kind of space open on the roster that would actually want to trade for Zerlag. And really the only team that kind of has this small roster is the Pacific Predators and Great Lakes Gators, because they kind of run with the same 4 guys every single series. Meanwhile, you take a look at the D-backs who have 6 players, and the Eagles who have 6, and the Ducks have a very full roster. So um, I guess out of those, the Pacific Predators has got to be the top one just because of the pure space they have. But if I'm playing manager in the league and I see Zerlag is up for grabs, I don't know who I'm trading for him. So if you see the Preds, right? if we're making a mock draft or a mock trade between Pacific Predators and Great Lakes Gators, sending Zerlag over to the Predators, in my mind, I'm not giving anybody back. Like, technically, you guys still have, like, Evan Longman and, I think Longman was his name, um, Jake Longman, sorry. You still have Jake Longman and Mac Hawley on your team, but that's just it's so weird because I don't see there's nothing in my mind if I'm a manager, there's nothing that looks for Brendan Zerlich, I'm like, "Ooh, I want him on my team." Because, I mean, he had a good 2022 season, but this year it was just off. I mean, the Gators have been off for forever. Um, but overall, I mean, it's just I just don't like it. I just don't see where he can go. Um, I mean, if a trade were to happen, like I said, I don't see like a draft pick either being involved um just because of how like valuable those have seemed to be. Like you look at the Mallards in 2021 when they traded Jordan Robles, they went from the worst team in the league to NLCS. And when the Magic drafted number one overall pick to Grant Miller, turned around the team, and they want to win a World Series. So um, overall, I just don't know. I just don't know. I, I, I this could possibly spark a bigger trade for a bigger player. Um, and I mean, I also saw like to the Cobras, like what if they just swapped like Zerlag for Sean Flynn? And like, okay, if that happens, but like if you're the Gators, is this the move that you guys are saying to like, oh, like in the Pipe It Up podcast, Jason Chaddock was like, hey, we're not returning with the same guys. Like that's he guaranteed it. I guess it's gonna come true. But like, is this the move that they're expecting to be like, oh, now eyes are gonna be on us because now we're gonna be contenders by trading away Brendan Zerlag? I don't like the move at all. And I don't think this is gonna do anything for the Gators. They're going to have to absolutely fleece an opponent out of this for this to like overall help them. Um, so I just don't see a possible landing spot for him. I don't see where he could go. Really, no spot really seems like a good home for him. Kind of looking through the comments, I also saw the Coastal Cobras as a chance as a home just because they have a ton of pieces. But like again, so sure, I mean, I guess a fair trade in my mind would be sending Flynn to the Gators for Brendan Zerleg. But what is that's just pointless. Like, what does it do for both teams? What does it do for their 2024 rosters? What does it do to like their outlook? It does nothing, in my opinion. So, um, interesting, I guess. I wonder if it was just Zerleg's decision on his own, or if it was like the Gators' whole thing. But not a good start to their rebuild. It's got to be a deep rebuild. But I guess what every team does, starting with a new rebuild, you got to have a new manager. So, was Zerleg stepping down? Top of my mind, I had Brendan Jorgensen as possibly the new Gators manager, but in the Pop It Up podcast, in that same one that I was referencing, Jason Chadwick said that all of the Gators know that the only true like player that they could get a good amount back for would be Brendan Jorgensen. And I think he's worth a draft pick. Um, maybe some secondary players, maybe like a second arm like Steve McGlade or something like that. Um, so I was gonna say who's the new Gators manager, I'd put Brendan Jorgensen, but if he doesn't leave either, like there's like I mean, if he stays then he could be the manager, but I feel like Jason Chadwick would be overall the best option for the new Gators manager. So I'm gonna give it to Jason Chadwick, but I could see Jorgensen stepping up, but just overall. Brendan Zerlag, no longer Great Lakes Gator. He spent 5 seasons with them, was a manager, won a World Series, won a manager of the year, but since then has been very, very quiet. So like I said, all in all, no clue where he will go. Absolutely no idea. And I mean, they also said like a trade is expected to happen very soon. I think they're gonna have trouble finding a trade that they want to make. Like, okay, if I'm straight up, if a team trades one draft pick for Brendan Zerlag, that is, I'm sorry, is gonna be mean. I know that's a terrible deal. That will not help you out because we've seen how, like I said, how valuable draft picks can be. So it's interesting. It's exciting because finally something is happening around the Gators organization, but it's just not the right move in my opinion. So that's kind of my thoughts on the whole Brendan Zerlag news. all in all, don't see a massive market, but I uploaded a short about this on our YouTube page. It's kind of all this like just the same kind of thoughts about it. So very, very interesting. I'll be following it very closely. If you want to subscribe to the MLW Vault YouTube channel over on our community page, I will be kind of like reposting all of the breaking news that happens. So it's a very, very reliable source. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, with that passed, without further ado, let's jump into redrafting the MLW draft starting in 2020. That's next. Okay, all right. So like I said, we're going to be starting off with the 2020 draft here. When this happened, I actually wasn't I didn't know about the league at the time of when this happened. I know I've said this story beforehand, but it was in like May or no, I think it was later than that. Anyway, I discovered 2020 opening day. And then I just watched the whole 2020 season in like a day and a half. Then went back to watch the draft, and this has the biggest group of so much relevant players as it was kind of the first year. This was the year MLW had the Winter League to pick from. Um, and I mean, just looking through it, it has so many good guys that are like just very high profile these days. So the number one overall pick in the 2020 draft, the Gators took Brennan Jorgensen. Then went Jimmy Norp to the Downtown Diamondbacks, then Nick Saylor to the Wildcats, Jason Chadwick to the Magic, Trevor Bonham to the Mallards, Chris Cheatham to the Gators, Max Tomalka to the Eagles, and then James Swanson to the Predators. So that was the official draft order. But in our redraft here, starting off here with the number one overall pick in the 2020 draft, the Great Lakes Gators select Jimmy Norp. That is correct. They passed on Jimmy Norp originally. As in the redraft, he moves up one spot. I mean, you all know his resume. You all know this. 2021 World Series champion, 2022 World Series champion, World Series MVP in both of those winning seasons, 2021 MVP and Cy Young and Co-Silver Slugger and Gold Glove and Most Clutch, and an All-Star. And 2022, the season after that, he won the Gold Glove and the Most Clutch. And then, of course, Jimmy Norp, in every single season of his career, he has made an All-Star performance or All-Star season. And I have thought about this as well. Um, what is the greatest single season MLW performance of all time? And I think some like little things off the top of my head here. You have Noah Dabergo in 2017. Of course, you can kind of really look into like 2010, 2015 eras, but those really, I don't mind, don't really count. I think the answer has got to be Jimmy Norp in 2021. Just nearly every single award that you can win, he won, right? Top World Series champion, World Series MVP. He didn't win Jimmy Norp has never won Manager of the Year, which is very surprising. But Cy Young that year, Co-Silver Slugger, as he also won it with Nick Saylor and Gold Glove and Most Clutch. His name was everywhere. I remember watching the award show. It's just Jimmy Norp, Jimmy Norp, Jimmy Norp. So I think it's very safe to say that Jimmy Norp should have been the number one overall pick to the Gators, but they passed on him and went Brennan Jorgensen. So Jimmy Norp at number two. The second overall pick in the 2020 redraft, we have Nick Saylor going to the Downtown Diamondbacks as he moved up one spot. Saylor had the first 2 years of his career were incredible. Since then, he has slowed down. It's his game from 2020 to 2021 are very different also. And just kind of like who he is with the team, what kind of role player he is, if he's pitching or hitting. But of course, he had his historic 2020-2021 season, where in those 2 years he won a Silver Slugger. In both seasons, was an All-Star in both seasons. Ridiculous hitting stats in 2020, 7 home runs, 1,125 OPS. And 2021, the year he didn't fully win the Silver Slugger to himself, when he won a co-manager or a co-Silver Slugger with Norp. In 2021, hit 11 home runs with a 1,430 OPS. Ridiculous by Saylor. And then, of course, 2 World Series appearances to his name. Ended up losing both. But Nick Saylor, I love the kid. I hate that his stock is just continuing to go down because I think, of course, Kyle Schultz is the Wildcats, but when Nick Saylor's good, God, the Wildcats are so much fun to watch. He does kind of need to just go back to his roots. We know last season in 2022, Nick Saylor was the second arm for the Wildcats. And then last season it kind of switched over to Jackson Pearson. So just kind of like I think he just needs to kind of focus on one thing at a time. I think if he can just really go back to be a sole hitter, um, they're good. The Wildcats have good like chemistry in the field. So I mean, you can also go back in the field, but ultimately, if Nick Saylor just focuses on his hitting career, then he can be very, very good. So we have Nick Taylor number 2, and then at number 3 overall, we have the original first overall pick. So the third overall pick in the 2020 redraft, we have Brennan Jorgensen to the Western Wildcats, of course, picked down by 2. Um, doesn't have a ton to his name. I thought he'd have a lot more accolades, but he won the, of course, 2020 World Series, 2 times All-Star in 2020 and then 2023. Had a ridiculous 0.95 ERA in 2020 and 16 RBIs in 21, with a 1,205 OPS last season. So Jorgensen, very underrated player. I think he's wasting his career with the Gators just because has had zero help. But I mean, kind of going off of his counterpart here, at number 4, I have Chris Cheatham going to the Midwest Mallards. Cheatham is underrated. He's actually a very good player. Chris Cheatham is a good player. Of course, it's the whole kind of zeitgeist around the Gators that everybody on their team sucks and they can't win games. Cheatham is a great hitter. He's honestly, if you look at his stats, yes, all of them are from 2020. But he's still underrated good player. So of course Chris Cheatham was the 2020 World Series MVP when he won it with the Gators. Um, and then I mean, here's another argument for the greatest um, single season performance of all time. As 2020, Chris Cheatham, of course, won the World Series and the World Series MVP, won Rookie of the Year, most clutch, most improved, was an All-Star, had a 4-2 record on the mound, with 4 wins in the postseason for the Gators, an actual perfect 4-0 record on the mound, and in the 2020 postseason had a 394 average with 6 home runs and a 1,495 OPS. That enough is ridiculous. Cheatham as a rookie was an absolute cheat code, hence the t-shirt. Of course, since then you can kind of make an argument with every guys that they've kind of been trending down in the past couple of years, but Cheatham, nonetheless, ridiculous player in 2020. I think deserves to go number 4. So again, top 4, we got Jimmy Norbert, Nick Saylor, Brennan Jorgensen, then Chris Cheatham. And at number 5, I have the Great Lakes Gators choosing Trevor Bonham. This kid, he's a little streaky. He goes in and out. I think overall, though, Trevor Bonham is a great player. Of course, won the World Series this year with the Metro Magic. Has a tremendous story to get to that point. So won the 2023 World Series as a 2-time All-Star from 2021, and then the season after that. And then he was actually traded. One of the kind of few recent regular season trades that happened in the season. The first one was kind of with Trevor Bonham as he went from the Mallards to the Magic, and then I just remember so much fun to watch him on the Magic when the trade first happened. When that happened, Trevor Bonham just turned it up a level with Magic, turned around their season, as in his 2021 stint with the Magic there, kind of in that second half. 1,433 OPS with a 300 average. And then just last season, 2023, had a 3-2 pitching record as he was a vital part in the Metro Magic World Series win. So very surprising that Bonham, or not surprising, but it's very like, it's just a good story of Bonham. This is on the Pipe It Up podcast, how he's been on a ton of bad teams, been on bad teams forever. Um, and then I mean miraculously, and I think it's Trevor Bonham also just like wasn't on the team that won the World Series. He was a part of the Magic too. Like you could say Jackson Curdy or yeah, King Curdy. He like wasn't really a role player. Didn't see a ton of action all year long, and but he did win the World Series. But Trevor Bonham was a part of that Magic team. So we have Bonham at number 5, and then at number 6 here, I initially had him at 4. But kind of looking over it, he could be pretty low here. Number 6 overall, we have the Midwest Mallards selecting Jason Chadwick. He's a two-time All-Star, 2020 Home Run Derby winner, was traded last season or 2 seasons ago from the Gators, from the Magic to the Gators, which, I mean, again, one of the many points of, the Gators just making wrong management decisions through the year. I do think Jason Chadwick is a good player. I mean, I think he adds a lot to the Gators. Um, just because I keep referencing the Pipe It Up podcast with Jason Chadwick. But he feels like the most level-headed player on the team, which in these 2 years of very bad wiffle ball, has been very, very necessary and very helpful. Because you have Brennan Jorgensen being mad with how competitive he is. You have Chris Cheatham, who's just down at himself, and then Chadwick kind of feels like the peacemaker here. As I mean, in my opinion, I think he should become the manager to the um, Great Lakes Gators. So, Chadwick, of course, does have some good numbers to his name. Won the Home Run Derby in 2020. Was, of course, part of that trade in 2022. That season, he had a 312 average. And then 2021 with the Magic had a 5-4 record on the mound. And then his rookie season, 5 home runs and a 323 average. That year, he won the Home Run Derby. So, Chadwick, very solid player. I don't think he's just hasn't been on the right team to kind of make the most of his talents. He is still a number 2 arm. Who he might even be honestly number 1 for the Gate. I can't remember just because of how like similar Chadwick, Jorgensen, and um, Cheatham are on the Gators with just kind of like their pitching styles. I think it honestly might have switched every series. Um, But I mean, yeah, like it doesn't feel like Chadwick's talents have been used the best. I feel like if he's on a good team, he can play really, really well. But nonetheless, Chadwick at number 6, and then these last 2 players, not really super familiar. 7th overall pick, Eastern Eagles are going to take James Swanson in the redraft. As his kind of stock goes up one pick. He had 15 at bats in 2020. Didn't get a hit, struck out 12 of those 15 times. Went to them after a season with the Preds, went to the Magic in 2021. Again, 0-0 average. And then in 2022, a third year of a 0-0 average. Don't think James Swanson has a hit in MLW in his career. That's okay, though, because the 8th guy here, Max Demalka, he played very, very little, had a 0-0-0 average in 2020. So our redraft here of the official 2020 MLW draft, number 1 overall, we have Jimmy Norp to the Gators. Number 2, Nick Saylor to the Diamondbacks. Number 3, Brendan Jorgensen to the Wildcats. Number 4, Chris Cheatham to the Mallards. Number 5, Trevor Bonham to the Gators. Number 6, Jason Chadwick to the Mallards. Number 7, James Swanson to the Eagles. And number 8, Max Tamalka to the Pacific Predators. Next up here, we have 2021. That's next. All right, the 2021 MLW draft class has a ton of very mid players. Like some where you're like, all right, I'll have him on my team, but isn't really gonna add a ton. There's 2 really good ones, and then kind of like a solid mix of about the 6 players that can pretty much be interchangeable. But the official 2021 draft order, number 1 overall went Brendan Baranowski to the Coastal Cobras, followed up by Caden Irwin to the Midwest Mallards. Then 3rd overall was Dallas Allen to the Eastern Eagles. Then good old little guy Michael Shima to the Downtown Diamondbacks. The number 5, Blade Walker to the Eagles. Number 6, Rudy Ramirez to the Preds. Number 7, Jackson Pearson to the Wildcats. And then number 8, Gus, famous Gus, to the Coastal Cobras from that infamous Great Lakes Gators Cobras trade, which ultimately resulted in Chris Cheatham for Gus. So, nothing very major there. So, starting the redraft here, number 1 overall, going to the Coastal Cobras, we have Mr. Dallas Allen going up 2 places here. He was the 2021 Rookie of the Year. He was the Rookie of the Year in this draft class. Won most dedicated last season, has an All-Star appearance every season of his career, 2023 World Series appearance. And then, I mean, he has some very impressive stats. In 2022, he had a 5-3 record on the mound with a 395 batting average. And then just last year, 2023, in the Eagles World Series run in the regular season, he pitched 5-2. And then we will learn this hopefully on Friday, but in 2023, last season, Dallas Allen has an MVP, Cy Young, and Silver Slugger nomination. So an incredible year for him. Um, Dallas Allen is the face of the Eastern Eagles. It is no longer Daniel Schultz. He's just turned into a true role player, honestly, more manager than player. But Dallas Allen is the Eagles' best pitcher and hitter. Without Dallas, I think the Eagles are kind of on levels with the Gators, just because they don't really have. If they didn't have Allen, they wouldn't really have that super X factor guy. As Dallas can be lights out on the mound, we know he can show up in the big spots, as in that unbelievable game 2 of the World Series at Mercedes-Benz. We truly saw what Dallas Allen could do and what he's capable of, being a true superstar in the league. But then, of course, infamously, the Eagles would lose in last 3 games to lose a World Series. But nonetheless, Dallas Allen, incredible player, definitely deserves to be number 1 overall in the draft class. Then at number 2 here, going to the Midwest Mallards, we have pitcher Brendan Baranowski, who is down 1 pick. Had a incredible 2022 season where he took the Cobras all the way to the World Series. That year, he won the Cy Young Most Improved and had an All-Star appearance. And his pitching stats are unbelievable in 2022. A 7-1 record with a sub-1.096 ERA, and then followed it up the next season, last year, with you guys an 0-6 record. The Cobras are the weirdest team, but Brendan Baranowski, nonetheless, a great player. He definitely played poorly, to say the least. I think kind of everybody did in the Cobras, but I think Brendan Baranowski is still a good player. He's honestly one of my favorites just because of how good he is. Um, I think he doesn't really fit with the Cobras vibe, I'm going to be honest. He kind of feels like a player that could be on the move for them. I don't know why the Cobras would trade him, because he's their best pitcher. Um, but Brendan Baranowski still, although he had a very difficult 2023, he is still number 2 overall in this draft packs. That is in this draft class. That is Brendan Baranowski. At number 3 here, we kind of begin the group of 6 players that could honestly be pretty interchangeable. But at number 3, super sneaky pick, actually the biggest rise of, I think, the whole episode here. We have Jackson Pearson going number 3rd overall to the Eastern Eagles, up 4 picks, as he was picked number 7 um, in the actual draft. So Jackson Pearson, he's a good kid. So much heart. Plays with a ton of um, he just wants it. He's played so determined. Definitely fits in with the Wildcats. Um, he has All-Star appearances in 2021 and 2023. Of course, the Wildcats. He played in the World Series, lost to the Diamondbacks for the Wildcats. In 2021, had 5 home runs with a 9.34 OPS. Didn't see that out of the kid. Tremendous rookie season. 2022, even higher at a 1,011 OPS. And then 2023, Pearson really played where we didn't see him going. As last season, he stepped up as a Wildcats' second arm in the rotation, pitched game 2s, kind of sandwiched by games for Kyle Schultz. His pitching records were 2-5 with a 2.62 ERA and a 2.89 WHIP, so not great numbers there. But really, what can you expect? Out of a kid. This is kind of his first year. It's when the hitting for the league is just getting better and better every single season. Jackson Pearson, though, I think he does deserve this number 3 overall spot. Pretty solid kid. I think that was a very, very good draft pick by Kyle Schultz. So at number 4 overall, staying in his spot, to the Downtown Diamondbacks, one of my favorite all-time players, Michael Shima at number 4. As you know, he played 3 seasons of his career in MLW and won a World Series in 2 of those 3. Gotta be the highest percentage, like World Series win percentage of any player ever. Well, I guess you look at the rookies and they've won it every single season. But Shima, 2021 and 2022 World Series champion, and of course had the walk-off hit in the 2021 World Series to win it for the Diamondbacks in Game 5. One of the greatest. I still think that the that World Series between the Diamondbacks and Wildcats is the greatest series in MLW history, and I've honestly um, yet to be mistaken. Just God, such a good series. All 5 games of it were incredible, and how perfect for the little guy Michael Shima to walk it off for the D-backs in Game 5. Kind of had a sneaky 936 OPS in 2021, just I was didn't really see that coming from Shima. Um, and then, of course, Michael Shima retired in 2023, or followed by the D-backs loss in the NLDS to the Eagles. And although Shima doesn't have a lot of stats to his name, he was outstanding in the field. One of the best downtown Diamondbacks players. Definitely an all-time player in if the D-backs had like of 5 guys to create the all-time team, Michael Shima would be on that list without a doubt. Just like the chemistry he had in the field, like playing defense with Norp and Heath, whoever was on the mound, or if he was on first, or if he was in kind of left field. He was one of my favorite players, and I know, like again, he wasn't the most flashy, but when he got on base, good things happened for the Diamondbacks. I think he was kind of the heart and soul for this team. The team that was kind of led by Jimmy Norp, powered by Jonah Heath. Um, but the heart was led by Michael Shima. So one of my favorite players. Very, very sad to see him retire last season. Um, he'll go down one of the greats. So that Shima at number 4, followed up at number 5 overall. Here we have Blade Walker staying in the same draft pick, going to the Eagles. Um, hasn't had a ton of action besides 2023, as he had 5 at bats in his rookie season with the 400 average and a 1,727 OPS. That's really funny in his 5 ABs. Had a quiet 2022, and then 2023 here. Um, in the Detroit series for the Eagles, when they were struggling against the Diamondbacks, Blade Walker stepped in. And from that point, which was slate 2 for the Eagles, Blade Walker was the number 2 arm for the Eagles all year long, starting over Daniel Schultz. Blade Walker started over Daniel Schultz for the Eagles rotation. Of course, Walker was a big part of their Eagles 2023 World Series run, and actually pitched in the World Series at Mercedes-Benz. So Walker, I kind of have mixed feelings about him. I love what he brings to the Eagles. He's definitely a vital part to them, because you talk about all the players that are like who has the highest average and who has the highest OPS and who's the best pitcher on the mound. But the players kind of like Rudy Ramirez or Blade Walker, where they're just kind of consistently on the sidelines cheering the team on. Um, Honestly, I think makes just a world of difference. Followed up by Blade Walker here at number 6 overall, taken by the Pacific Predators. We have Caden Irwin, who actually had a big drop off. Was originally drafted at number 2 overall and went down to 4. When I was making the list at the beginning, and kind of doing it with no stats, I actually had Irwin at number 3 behind Brendan Baranowski, but kind of looking at the stats and really what he's done for the Mallards, I think 6 is a good spot in this draft class. As Irwin did have a quiet rookie year, and 2022 season, where not a lot happened for him. And then in this last season, kind of had a quiet 821 OPS for the Mallards. You know, knowing the Mallards, I guess you can call that kind of like unimpressive OPS, just because of the numbers and power hitters they have on their team. But I mean, Irwin is a role player for the Ducks. Like I said, that 821 OPS is kind of really the second arm for the Mallards, backed up by the jumpman Jordan Robles. So Caden Irwin, I God, every time I bring up a Mallards player, I talk about them and I think what they need to do in the offseason. As I think he should be traded. I think he's kind of at that sweet spot right now where he has the most outlook for him, where I don't think he's really going to get better than where he is right now. But I mean, Tommy likes him, so I think he's going to stick with the Mallards there. So number 6, you have Caden Irwin here, and number 7 could be 8, possibly could be 8, but at number 7 here, Rudy Ramirez, taken by the Western Wildcats, down 1 pick. And Rudy Ramirez, he has the same narrative every single season. He is so close to a breakout year on the mound. Um, if I'm being honest, there are no impressive numbers to his name so far. Um, I mean, of course, has been pretty quiet. I think being on the Predators team, it very much limits you, I think. Um, just because they have it figured out on the mound. They haven't made any moves on the mound in feels like 2, 3 seasons. Um, so it's really limited to he has a very specific role for the Predators. And I think until he can show that he can hit wiffle balls, he's going to stay in that spot. So Ramirez, of course, is this incredible baseball player, but you know, not quite had as great. Hasn't quite had a great year of wiffle ball yet. In 2023, he was like, I remember there's like a streak when the Preds got hot last year in the second half where like he hit the ball and it was like either a shot foul ball or it was a hit off the coping. It was something so close to him getting home runs. I think Rudy Ramirez is capable of a 5 home run, maybe like 900 OPS season. Or like five home runs ish, maybe 4 or 5 for Ramirez. So I think the Preds, I think, are another very interesting team to talk about. And how they are ultimately one player away from becoming the next Diamondbacks dynasty. And I think this is a team that can win. If they have that one player, um, the Preds can win back-to-back World Series and maybe like 4 World Series over the span of 6 years. So I think if Ramirez can explode as that hitter that he has so much potential, I think that could be the guy. Um, but the Preds, I've been following them very closely. They're definitely one of my favorite teams. I actually just ordered a Preds Moxie jersey that I'm super excited about. But Rudy Ramirez, like I said, so close to a breakout year. But closing out this draft class here, we have Gus of the Coastal Cobras. He was taken 8th overall in 2020, in 2021, so nothing really changed there. Uh, played in the World Series with the Cobras 2022. Was the All Fun Game MVP. Kyle, I notice that helps to his career. But I am dead serious. This is a stat on the MLW website. Last season for the Cobras, in the 2 outs that Gus pitched on the mound, 2 outs, he has an ERA of 22.50. 22.50 for Gus. We're gonna leave it at that. Why Gus is at number 8. Every time he's like interviewed or something or mic'd up, he always feels like very kind of like dissatisfied with the Cobras just because he doesn't get any playing time. I think sure he has potential. As that was what I honestly my favorite part about the All Fun game in 2022 was how like there were some players like Gus and Rudy Ramirez who were just tearing it up against these guys that like just picked up a wiffle ball bat and they're just there for fun. Like they tore them up, and that shows you actually how much skill is in the league. So, um, Gus, of course, I think has potential. If he were to get a lot more at bats, if he got like a full season of ABs, I'd be interested to see what his numbers are. But Gus, nonetheless, at number 8. So in our 2021 redraft here, number 1 overall goes Dallas Allen, followed up by Brendan Baranowski, then Jackson Pearson, Michael Shima, Blade Walker, Caden Irwin, Rudy Ramirez, and then Gus. All right, let's jump into 2022. All right, moving along here in the 2022, one of the more recent here draft. This was a super fun one, and it's very cool to look at the players because a surprising amount of these have actually made a name for themselves in the league here. Starting off here, the official 2022 draft order started off with number 1 overall going to Jordan Robles to the Mallards, then followed by Mac Hawley, number 2 overall to the Preds. Then we had Sawyer BN to the Cobras, followed by Landon Urgaitis to the Eagles. At number 5, Reese Harris to the Gators. Number 6, Trey Flood to the Diamondbacks. Number 7, Ty Smith to the Cats. And then number 8 was Casey Bennett to the Downtown Diamondbacks. So in the redraft here, going number 1 overall, you're out of your mind if this is not the best answer. Jordan Robles should stick to number 1. What he's accomplished in 2 seasons as the jump man of wiffle ball is actually incredible. In 2022 was a Silver Slugger, could be 2023. was the rookie of the year in this draft class. All stars. He's been all star in both of his seasons. Could be 2023 MVP, which I'm going to plug the episode. If you have not listened to episode 2 of MLW Vault, I break down why I think Jordan Robles should be the 2023 MVP. We'll figure that out soon. But then in 2022, had a 9-4 record with a 2.27 ERA, 2.01 WHIP, and then at the plate, just ripping it up. 1,417 OPS, 393 average with 8 home runs. And then followed up last year, 8-1 record, 152 ERA, 165 WHIP. Just got better on the mound, and then offense pretty much stayed the exact same. 1,386 OPS, 359 average with 25 RBIs. It's ridiculous, but again, broken record player. Mallard's very fun team to talk about. Back-to-back NLCS losses should not be overlooked. I have an episode planned that I'm going to make closer to the start of the 2024 season, maybe after the draft. That is why 2024 is a World Series or bust year for the Mallards. Just because, I mean, you can't, with how much talent is on this team, which I think, I like this roster, but I think there could be some changes. They have not made it to the World Series yet. And I think everybody wants it a lot, but I think they're missing a couple pieces. So Robles at number 1. Followed up at number 2 overall here, I have Sawyer BN, taken by the Pacific Predators, going up a spot. Of course, made the World Series with the Cobras in his rookie year. Rookie season went 3-3, pitching record with a 2.10 ERA and 2.18 WHIP. Then at the plate, surprising numbers. I didn't really recognize this by BN, but his rookie year at the plate had an 8.71 OPS with a 3.19 average and 12 RBIs. So very good for Sawyer. And then followed up last season, a 4-3 record on the mound with a 2.33 ERA. Believe it or not, his 4-3 record were the 4 Cobras wins all year long. So you look at Brendan Baranowski, who pitched 0-6 on the mound. BN went 4-3 and had all 4 of the Cobs wins. So BN definitely a dog. Stats at the plate declined a bit at a 7.10 OPS with a 2.14 average. But nonetheless, I love the heart that Sawyer BN plays with. I think he got drafted by the right team with the Cobras. So BN, I think, is a great player. Very excited to see him come 2024. Followed up here at number 3. This was I might want to move up a player actually. We're going to stick with what we have here, but I might make a little disclaimer. Number 3 overall, I have Landon Urquides, taken by the Cobras, going up 1 pick. Urquides is a very underrated player. Just because of the stars you have on the Eagles, kind of his name gets skipped over. 2022 kind of had a quiet rookie year, 7.43 solid OPS with a 2.06 average, and had a pitching win on the mound. And then Landon actually got hurt for the first half of the 2023 season. And without Landon Urquides, the Eagles went 4-5. They had that big sweep against the Cobs, but it didn't feel like a team that was 4-5 because they got swept by the D-backs and lost on opening day. And then when Landon gets healthy and is put into the lineup, he went 10. The Eagles went 10-7 with Urquides in the roster in 2023. So made the World Series with the Eagles last season, and in the postseason, Urquides stepped up 8.61 OPS with 2 home runs and 13 RBIs. Definitely played a big spot in the World Series for the Eagles. At number 4 here, this player I'm thinking should be at number 3, and Urquides should be at 4. But right here, taken by the Eagles, 4th overall, we have Trey Flood, who's up 2 picks. Trey Flood, of course, won the World Series with the D-backs, only had 11 at-bats that season. But 2023, Trey Flood became a cornerstone player for the Diamondbacks, such a role player. He was actually, last season, was the National League All-Star pitching starter. Like, he started the pitching game for the National League when he was at a 4-0 record. 2023 wasn't a huge hitter, but in his 8 at-bats made the most of it with a 3.75 average and 1,194 OPS. Like I said, 4-0 pitching record of the first half. Slowed down a little bit as he finished 4-3 in the mound with a 1.64 ERA and 1.80 WHIP. and he is a Most Improved nomination in 2023. He is my pick to win Most Improved Player. As this kid was really fun to watch last season. I think he put in a ton of work in the offseason to be that number 2 arm. And I think the D-backs have a good rotation of Norp and Flood, maybe trying to develop a third guy. They still have Heath, who pitched a ton in their World Series win against the Wildcats in 2021. But Trey Flood, I think he could move up to number 3. We're going to keep him here right now just because it's what I've written down. But Flood, nonetheless, great player. I have that Diamondback followed up by another Diamondback at number 5 here. We have Casey Bennett, who's drafted 8th. So a good Mr. Irrelevant guy. As he's moved up 3 spots, drafted by the Gators in this kind of redraft here. Won the World Series with the D-backs last or 2021 or 22, excuse me. Only had 13 ABs that year with the 5.58 OPS. 2023 though definitely stepped up, 8.74 OPS with 2 home runs and a 200 average. So Casey Bennett, very solid player for him. The Jimmy Norp is a tremendous drafter. I have no idea how he has not won a Manager of the Year. He got absolutely fleeced in 2022, 2 years ago when he didn't win Manager of the Year, just because he's took his team back to back, something that hasn't happened since 2014, 2015. Has so good at drafting. Trey Flood drafted Shima too, but really Flood, Bennett, and Jacob Pishka, who are all 3 very solid players. The D-backs have so much depth. To Jimmy Norp, of course. Nonetheless, Casey Bennett at number 5 here. Number 6, that is followed up by Ty Smith. Hasn't had a ton of action. He has 24 overall at-bats in his career. As last year had a 6.11 OPS and his rookie season a 9.44 OPS. Ty Smith, I definitely want to see more of him. I think he has potential with the Wildcats, as I just don't know if his talents are being used the most. So kind of speeding along here. Number 7 overall, I have Reese Harris. Again, hasn't seen a ton of action. Only had 8 at-bats his rookie season, no hits. Had more last year with 18, but nothing popping. 5.67 OPS with a 167 average. Pitched 1 inning and 2 outs last year with a 12.60 ERA, which is not fun. And then that is going to be followed up with Mac Hawley at number 8, which Hawley was drafted at number 2 by the Preds, and he has 10 at-bats in his career with a 0 average and a 4.44 OPS. So Hawley at number 8. Sorry, that was pretty quick, but going kind of over through it here. The 2022 MLW redraft here. We got Jordan Robles, number 1 overall, followed by Sawyer Bien. Then we're gonna put Flood at 3. Gonna put Trey Flood at 3, Landon Urquides at 4, Casey Bennett at 5, Ty Smith at 6, Reese Harris at 7, and Mac Hawley at 8. All right, that is the 2022 draft. Final one here. Let's redraft the most recent MLW draft, which 2023. That's next. All right, final draft class here. The most recent one happened last April, the 2023 draft. These rookies performed so well this year. As let's look back at here at the official 2023 draft order. Number 1 overall went Grant Miller to the Metro Magic. In that trade surrounding the number 1 overall pick for the Mallards and Magic, as the Mallards actually. No, the Wildcats got the number 1 overall pick in 2024. But Grant Miller, number 1 overall, followed up by Preston Colm to the Mallards at 2. Then R.J. Walgate at number 3, followed by Carson Urquides, Landon Urquides, his brother, at number 4. Then Jake Longman at 5, Jacob Pishka at 6, Chris Baranowski, Brendan Baranowski's brother, at number 7. And then the player manager Matt Carlington at number 8 for the Mallards. Right, starting with the redraft here. Number 1 overall, I'm not going RJ Walgate. I'm going Grant Miller. Still as kind of, if I'm building a team. Ooh, that's actually a good question. Say if I was building a team, would I rather want Grant Miller or RJ Walgate? Ooh. Maybe that's not my reasoning, but I put Grant Miller still at number 1. was a 2023 World Series champion, voted All-Star last year in his rookie year. Unbelievable numbers at the plate. Is my vote for Silver Slugger as he had a 1746 1000. That's 1746 OPS with a nearly 500 483 average and a 5 home runs in 12 games. He was even out of series. So if he had that final series, that could possibly be like 2 more home runs. Higher average. Ridiculous from Miller though. Like I said, my vote for Silver Slugger was a vital part. If he's not on the Magic, they have zero offense, absolutely zero. AJ Ackerman stepped up in the World Series a little bit, maybe a little bottom here, but Grant Miller is the offense by the Magic. Without them, wouldn't be anywhere. And then followed up the other Metro Magic player at number 2 overall here in the redraft. We have Audrey Walgate, going up a pick here. Of course, won the World Series, was an All-Star, actually the starting pitcher for the American League when he was just 14 years old. And of course, his ridiculous stat line from his rookie year: 7-1 record on the mound, 107 ERA, and 150 WHIP. Walgate is my vote for Rookie of the Year and Cy Young. I think he deserves both of those. Yes, um, over Grant Miller for Rookie of the Year. I guess that doesn't really make sense if I have Miller at number 1. But nonetheless, Walgate, very solid player. I'm very excited to see how he performs in 2024. Just because I could kind of see him having like a kind of downer year, maybe going like 4-5 record, maybe like a 3-6. He's not going 3-6. But I could kind of see him having like a similar year to like Brendan Baranowski, where he has one breakout season and then kind of follows it up with a bad one. But RJ Walgate, nonetheless, at number 2. Number 3 here, another just absolute stud picked very low. At number 3 overall, we have Jacob Pishka from the Metro Magic, or getting drafted by the Metro Magic in this redraft, going up 3 spots. Pishka, rookie year, had a 1,073 OPS with 3 home runs, had a 269 batting average, and a nearly 500 on base percentage. So Pishka, such a solid player for the Diamondbacks, like I just talked about earlier. Jimmy Norp knows how to draft. I am very excited to see this kid mature over the next couple years. I think he could be a superstar in MLW by 2026. I think Pishka could be at the top of the list there in the in just like MVP, just everything, kind of being a superstar in the league. Maybe just because he's a rookie, haven't really seen his entire game. Maybe he could even work into a pitcher if kind of Flood doesn't work out. They'll probably have Heath behind him. Maybe Pishka has an arm behind him. Never know. But number 3 overall, we have Jacob Pishka. Then at 4, I have Preston Colm, which is going down 2 spots, getting drafted to the Eagles here in this redraft. He had a 5.71 OPS last year with a 200 average and 7 RBIs. I actually really liked what I saw from Colm. He just looked like a very sound player. Um, Definitely didn't look like a rookie with how like good he looked and everything. So Colm, look out for this kid. I think he's a very solid player for the Mallards. I think he's a guy they stick around and really develop over the next couple years. So followed by Colm at number 5 here, we have the other Mallard, Matt Carlington, going up 3 spots here at number 5. Carlington wasn't a huge player. As on the plate last season, he had an 844 OPS. That's actually pretty solid. 182 average and 8 RBIs. And of course, Carlington was ultimately drafted to kind of help Tommy with the managing side of it all. He's a player manager hybrid. And I think he does help with that a lot. But also, I was rewatching the Philly series. Carlington could be evolving into a very good player, actually. I think he has a ton of potential to him. I think if they really put in work to Carlington, he could be a true good player. But so right now we have Matt at number 5, which is pretty high. And then followed by Matt at number 6, we have Carson Urgaitis dropping 2 picks here. Not good numbers. Didn't see a ton of plate appearances last season, his rookie year. Did get to play in a World Series, which is good for him and his experience. Only had 11 at bats, had 377 OPS with an 091 batting average. So Carson Urgitis not great in that department, but again, rookie year. He is better than the last two people here. At number 7 overall, we have Chris Baranowski taken by the Cobras in the same original spot. Only had 7 at bats, didn't get a hit, but got on base almost half at 417 for Chris Baranowski, and then followed up. At number 8, we have Jake Longman, taken by the Preds, down 3 spots just because 0 appearances. He's one of those young kids that has been in the MLW system for a long time in their tournaments, and never really got drafted. So you could tell that Kyle was very glad when Longman was picked by the Preds. So tough for him that he didn't get any plate appearances. I'm sure it was kind of a big part that, I mean, I know he's pretty busy, but hopefully he makes an appearance in 2024. Again, the Preds. I want to make a full episode kind of talking about every team, just because I have like a little things to say about how I think every team does have a lot of potential. Maybe Longman's that guy. We don't really know because we haven't seen him. But that is the redraft for last year's MLW draft. Again, going over, we have Grant Miller number 1, RJ Walgate number 2, Jacob Pishka at number 3, Preston Coleman at 4, Matt Carlington at 5, Carson Yurgitis at 6, Chris Baranowski at 7, and Jake Longman at 8. All right, before we wrap it up here, we're going to answer some final questions and then head out in this long episode number 3. That's next. All right, we are closing up this episode here with kind of 4 just questions about the draft class. We're going to be answering the question of who is the greatest draft pick of all time, who is the best number 1 overall pick, who is the best Mr. Irrelevant, so the 8th pick, and then what is the greatest late round steal? So starting off here, simple question here with a simple answer. The greatest draft pick of all time is Mr. Jimmy Norp of the 2020 class. Went number 2 overall to the Diamondbacks. I mean, I think a fun little mini series for me would be doing MLW what ifs, to like see what happened here. And what if the Diamondbacks never drafted Jimmy Norp? It's like nothing would have happened for the organization over the course of 3 years. Heath is a good player. Shima worked with the scheme, and then they, without Norp, they also would not have Trey Flood, Casey Bennett, and Pishka. So, like I said, Norp knows how to draft, and he is the greatest draft pick of all time. I think well, I guess the question is who drafted him was the Gavin player, Lareski, I think. I can't remember his name exactly, but he was on the he was a manager for the Diamondbacks in 2020 before Norp took over in 2021. So, nonetheless, Jimmy Norp is the greatest draft pick of all time. Followed by who's the best number 1 overall draft pick. It's between Brendan Baranowski, Brendan Jorgensen, Jordan Robles, and Grant Miller. My answer is Jordan Robles in the class of 2022. I think he's going to win MVP in a couple days. Robles is so good at wiffle ball. He's a jump man. He is a reliable player. He could be the number 1 player coming in 2024. Of course, the aura around him can't come up in the can't play in the big spots. But I still think he's a great player. Jordan Robles, number 1 overall, best number 1 overall pick, followed by best Mr. Irrelevant. That was number 1. This is number 8. I'm going with Casey Bennett here. There isn't a ton of super good choices. Maybe Matt Carlington, but I think it's got to be Casey Bennett. At 2021, it was Gus, and then 2020, it was James Swanson. So we're going Casey Bennett for Mr. Irrelevant, best Mr. Irrelevant class. Again, just Diamondbacks all around here. If anything, this episode shows how willing or good they know how to draft. Then last question here: what is the greatest late round steal? In late round, I'm going rounds 8 to 6. This one was difficult, and I understand that. Oh, everybody's saying, "Oh, he's washed, can't do anything now." I'm gonna give it to Chris Cheatham. Not only what he accomplished in his rookie season, I think when Cheatham is surrounded with good players and on a good team, he will play better. I mean, I think a lot of Cheatham's game is mental. So if he's, on a team that goes 3-11 or 3-12 or even 2-13, um, he kind of feeds off that negative games and then just doesn't play very well. Cheatham is underrated. He kind of makes the mistake at the end of the game to like give him that pitching loss and give him that um, like game-ending strikeout. But kind of when he can play, Cheatham is still a okay player. As he, in my opinion, is the greatest late round steal from round 6 to 8. All right, wow. I had a Celsius before this, little shaky. Not a good decision here when filming a podcast and I'm sitting down for like an hour and a half talking about this. But this is a great time. Love doing this podcast here. So I'm going to wrap it up. Before you go, in the description of this episode, the top link is going to be the feedback form for all 4 draft classes. I'm very interested to see what you guys think should be kind of redrafted. So I'll let you guys draft that. I'll be very interested to see what you guys think. Secondly, is going to be MLW Wiffle Ball on YouTube. Don't miss the award show trying to come out on this Friday, January 19th. Third link is going to be the MLW Vault Shorts feed. If you don't know, this podcast has a YouTube channel where I'm actually pretty active over there. We're doing community posts, which is we're doing MLW Throwback Thursdays, where every Thursday I post a throwback video for you to watch. And then, of course, the community feed I'll post when I upload new videos. I'm going to be active in the shorts feed. So the second or third link is going to be to the MLW Vault YouTube channel shorts feed. I've uploaded kind of 3 videos, technically 4, but I put every MLW Moxie jersey into a tier list. I did a 2-part series for that. That was a lot of fun. And then I just made a quick video on my first thoughts on the Brendan Zerlag news. And the fourth thing is going to be the MLW website. It's where I get all of these stats for every episode. So ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap it up. I will see you all next time for episode number 4, with hopefully the Brendan Zerlag trade has been finalized. Never know. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all next time. Peace.